of us that love Silent Hill, I think we can all agree that Silent Hill 2 is the proverbial gem in the survival horror crown, so to speak, and why so many of us were waiting with fingers and toes crossed for the remake/remaster back in 2024. But when it was announced that there was going to be a movie based on Silent Hill 2, all I could think was, oh hell no! As Silent Hill Revelations was... It was a thing. It wasn't a good thing, but it was a thing. So I'm hoping that by the end of this video, if you are casually here for the Silent Hill or hardcore here for the Silent Hill, you will understand why so many of us absolutely hate this new movie. If you're new here though, I'm Hannah, I go by Hordes Online, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, so if that sounds like something you might be interested in, maybe hit the subscribe button, join the Horde, they're a lovely bunch 6 feet below the video in the coffin section. Please have up a casket and have a chat down there. They are a lovely bunch and they don't bite unless you ask them to. Now, before we start, there's going to be somebody that says, what do I possibly know about horror games? So, for that one person that will ask, here is my credentials, as well as 27 years of gaming since I was 7 years old. So I think that makes me qualified to talk about the differences between this god-awful movie and the original wonderful thing that was Silent Hill 2. This, if it's not obvious, is going to be a full scorched earth video on this movie. So how about we start with a full spoiler summary version of this plot, start to finish. I am going to spoil absolutely everything, so if you do not want to know the entire plot of this movie, please skip forward to this timestamp. There will still be spoilers after that for the movie and for the game, but just not the entire plot. And if you're here for the full spoiler version, cue 3, 2, 1.
Okay, let's go.
We open with a convertible sports car heading through the mountains towards Silent Hill, and apparently the route to Silent Hill looks like it belongs in the Italian Alps. This is when we first meet James, and his awful wig is blowing in the wind before he narrowly avoids becoming one with the front of a semi-truck and nearly running over a woman whose suitcase explodes all over the road because it turns out she's the only woman left on the entire planet whose suitcase does not have zippers. This is, of course, Mary, because who else was it gonna be if you've played the game? Of course this is Mary, which causes her to miss her bus, because why you catch a bus up the middle of a mountain into Silent Hill is a mystery to me as well. James, after a far too long a time break, says, I, being the reason that you missed the bus, will drive you back to Silent Hill because that's the least you could do, sir. And a storm starts. Mary's a bit too happy that the storm starts, and then we jump forward in time to James sitting in a bar as an alcoholic, because life choices, and he heads back, I guess, to his apartment after the world's worst and most pathetic bar fight that you have ever seen in a film.
Come on, Queensbury rules.
This is when you get the first hint of the iconic Silent Hill soundtrack. Don't get used to it, it's not featured that often, and I'll point it out whenever it does. Back home, James is sat in an armchair staring at a picture that he has painted because guess what? In this version, James is an artist, but not just any artist. An artist that only paints huge, obnoxious pictures of his ex's face from every single angle, and you will see this reprised multiple times throughout the movie. It's at this point that James is like, ooh, there's a letter on my, doormat, I should probably read this, and after reading it is like, oh my god, my dead ex has written a letter saying come to Silent Hill. How has my dead ex written a letter? Fuck knows, but of course let me get in my car and go and find out what the hell she wants.
Help is on the way, dear!
After ignoring multiple calls from his therapist, who appears in this movie more times than any other side character, which is quite the feat because the rest of them don't appear very often, James is in his car speeding towards Silent Hill in yet another storm, and he finds himself sat at the side of the road waiting for the storm to pass, and this is when we get a moment straight out of the game where you get James stood in a public bathroom, this time though looking like he he is having a stroke in the mirror and probably looking at that very questionable wig and thinking, whose decision was this to put on my head?
Why don't you try on that lovely wig?
We then get James walking through the forest towards Silent Hill and the first of the cringy voiceover monologues, which sounds like James has never spoken to another human being in his entire life. This is when we first come across Angela for the first time, who is also wearing another questionable wig. This is going to be a recurring theme. The wig budget in this was non-existent, and they all look like they could be sentient beings who are trying to attach themselves to the brains of these characters. Angela also happens to sound like she's been smoking 50 a day since birth. We probably spend 30 seconds with her before James is off, plodding towards Silent Hill and aimlessly wandering around. We do get the iconic shot of the Silent Hill sign, because you couldn't do a Silent Hill game or movie without coming across that sign at some point. And then we get many minutes of James aimlessly wandering around the deserted town in the fog before we get the first glimpse of the first monster in this. And it is the bow-legged monster that you first came across in the first Silent Hill movie, but this time it is done with absolutely horrible CGI. This section is about 15 minutes long, I'm gonna say, and this monster appears twice for a combined time of about 10 seconds.
You serious?
Most of this movie is told in flashbacks, and at this point, there has already been about 10 of them, and we're maybe 25 minutes into the movie. This is when we get more flashbacks, and more flashbacks, and more flashbacks, including one that says that, ooh, maybe there's another religious cult going on here in Silent Hill that is not the Order, which we absolutely didn't need, and I will get onto that at a later point.
Oh, thank God.
Finally, after some more aimlessly wandering about, we get the first glance of Silent Hill's Otherworld, and I have to give them a tiny bit of credit for this, because whereas the first game and the third game had the like rusty underworld from Silent Hill 2's Otherworld, for James particularly, is like fleshy and drippy and a bit gross looking. It's like body horror kind of vibes. They've kind of got that correct, so I'm going to give them credit for that, and that's the only thing they get credit for. And this world is then full of horrible CGI. Like, the monsters in this are horrendous. We're talking like could have been done on mixed kit with the green screen removed levels of bad. Yeah, not good. So blah blah blah, more wandering, blah blah, you know, it goes on again for a bit longer before we eventually get to the apartment block. This is like 35 minutes in, and if you've played the game, you'll know this is the first location that you actually explore. This is when, in one of the rooms, James finds a mannequin that is covered in moths, and I bring this up because moths have actually got quite a symbolic reasoning behind them in Silent Hill 2, which I will get to when we talk about all the lore that this movie has decided to either completely ignore or change. So it is at this point James finds a mannequin covered in moths, blah blah blah. He then gets another flashback to the religious cult when he finds a face bust thing covered in moths again, and you find out that Mary's cult used to meet in her apartment like a book club. They're a cult that doesn't even have a building that they meet in. This cult is pathetic, and I'm gonna absolutely wring this cult to pieces later on, because oh boy, are they like zero charisma, zero threat. They're just terrible. But let's continue. It is at this point as well that we still haven't met Laura, Eddie, Pyramid Head, or Maria. So there's still quite a few people to go, and we're coming up on the halfway point, like really fast here. You find out that Mary's dad happened to be the cult leader. You never see Mary's dad. It is never like revealed who he is. There's a bust of his face at one point, which takes maybe 2-3 seconds of the entire film. And I'm supposed to believe that this cult worshipped this man. Like, there is no pictures, figures, anything that says like, this is who we worship. It is, nope, it's not good. And this is when we finally meet Eddie for all of about 2 minutes. He comes into the movie looking like a dirty Jack Black in a bathroom with the worst wig of the entire movie. It looks like somebody has sewn one of those, like, Davy Crockett coon hats to his head. Like, that's how bad it is. From here, James hears a baby crying in the corridor and it's like, yeah, there's a baby crying, I'm going to go and fuck off and find out what that is. And he disappears with Eddie in tow and they find Laura. And Laura is hiding in a cupboard. And Laura is in white face and looks like she has never slept a day in her life, not a baby. And the next thing, Eddie is like, oh no, you've woken him up. And in comes Pyramid Head's feet. Now, major point here, Eddie should not be able to see Pyramid Head, and I'm going to touch on this again in the lore that the movie is completely oversought, like later on, but go with me. Pyramid Head turns up for the first time. James is like, oh fuck, I'm glad that there's this like metal pole door thing in the way that he can't get through, and, you know, fucks off. That, like, Pyramid Head appears for the first time for maybe 10 seconds. That's it.
The impudence! The audacity!
And this is when we say goodbye to Eddie for the entire movie. We never see Eddie pop up ever again. And I honestly don't think Eddie even introduces himself. I can't remember Eddie ever saying his name. I know he's called Eddie because I've played the games, but like, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I swear at no point does this man go, hello, I am Eddie.
What's my name? Say my name, bitch!
More horrible CGI monsters later, along with some more aimlessly wandering around the apartment building. Pyramid Head gets into a fist fight with a spider lady thing and drags her body off, but there's no let me get handsy with it like there is in the game, because that's a choice considering that Pyramid Head is a manifestation of something in particular. And there's absolutely none of that going on in this movie. Pyramid Head just turns up and is like, let me punch things. Sir, you've got the most enormous sword. Why are you punching it to death? This is when James leaves the apartment building. Like, nothing has happened whatsoever. More flashbacks, more missed calls from his therapist. We meet Angela for the second time, who is screaming and having a hissy fit in a corner. And it doesn't do anything to build on who she is as a character or tell you about her backstory. And then outside we see Laura sat on a wall, still in whiteface, with a doll. And she's like, you are horrible and weren't nice to Mary, and I'm not going to tell you anything. But by the way, I can see all the monsters here in Silent Hill, which again is not accurate, and I'll explain why in the lore, because there is absolutely no way in hell that Laura should be able to see the monsters in the other world of Silent Hill.
I see dead people.
This is when James realises that he has a second speed besides like aimlessly wandering around, and runs after Laura into a concrete maze in the middle of the park, and we finally meet Maria, who is wearing another god-awful wig. It's like straight from a bag, and a Shein special outfit is all I can describe it as. Like, she looks like she's auditioning to play Julia Roberts in a remake of Pretty Woman, and that is not the look that the game is going for either. So at this point, there's more flashbacks, because I kid you not, so many flashbacks, and we finally make it to Silent Hill Hospital. Finally.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
This is where we find out that Mary has been poisoned by her father and the cult over multiple years, and we see another flashback of James watching Mary and her cult have a meeting in the sewer where they perform a ritual involving Mary wearing a mask made out of tin foil. And at this point, James is like, oh, this is too much. I think I'm going to up sticks and leave, which he does. The Otherworld returns back in the non-flashback version of Silent Hill, and the Bubblehead nurses get their first appearance. Half of them are actors in makeup and the other half is horrible CGI, but their faces aren't bandages anymore. They look like cocoons with giant holes in them. That's all I can describe it as. They chase James and Maria, because suddenly the nurses can fucking sprint, and they end up in an elevator because Maria gets injured. So Maria gets put in a side room, which is kind of accurate for the game, and is like, go and find Mary. If you don't find her, promise me that we can leave. And James is like, fine. Laura turns up and is like, again, you were horrible, blah, blah, blah. She's, you know, but she's not the like bratty blah, blah, blah that she is in the game. She's just sort of like annoying in this. James finds his second speed again and runs after Laura through the hospital to toxicology. And this is when we get more flashbacks and the first glimpse at one of the monsters. This is the Flesh Lips boss from Silent Hill 2, and it is in this moment that James discovers that he has the ability to deep throat an arm. Because everybody needs a party trick, and if his career as an artist fails, maybe he can use that new skill to pay the bills.
Scooby-Doo, take note.
In yet another flashback, James threatens Mary and tells her that they need to leave Silent Hill. Mary says, I told you that all of these things were happening. You promised to protect me. James gets aggressive and then leaves her behind and ends up in a psych ward because why the hell not? Which is where he meets his therapist. And it is revealed that pretty much immediately after James left, which makes no sense, and I'll explain in a minute, Mary dies. And I say it doesn't make sense because you later see that James went back months later to visit her. So how the fuck did she immediately die, therapist woman?
What did you expect?
We then get some more moths, and James returns to Maria, who is like, oh good, we can leave now. By the way, I never told you what my name was. It's Maria, by the way. They make out, and then James is like, yep, I'm now going to leave you behind here as well because I need to go and get in an elevator for reasons that are never disclosed, and how I know to go this way, again, is never revealed. And Maria plods along with him and they end up in a basement, which is another concrete maze, but this one is full of pictures that he has painted of Mary's face from all different angles. He turns around and says to Maria in an absolute throwaway comment, I know you're not real, you mean nothing to me. And then the next thing, she is raised into the air by Pyramid Head, who has finally come back, and she sort of kebabbed on his sword in the air for a little bit. And this is when you find out who is actually under the Pyramid Head mask, because if you've played the game, you should already know this by now. And besides that, it's never touched on ever again. And that's the last time that you will see Pyramid Head in this. That's right, he appears twice. In the movie that he's supposed to be in, they've forgotten to actually use him.
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
You then get more flashbacks of James being a see you next Tuesday, a word that I absolutely cannot say on YouTube that I would love to right now. But the reason I call him that is because it's an attitude. If somebody starts acting like a big C, they are being particularly vile and rotten. And I am convinced that that word is contagious because once one person starts to act that way, other people seem to think that they can also act that way as well. We finally get to the Lakeview Hotel, and it's at this point I angled my watch towards the screen to see how long was left, and there was 15 minutes to try and wrap up this entire plot, which if you've played the game, you'll know is absolutely nothing. Like, nothing. And the whole section at the Lakeview Hotel has been completely reduced to maybe 10 minutes.
Quick.
Laura's here again, and she asks James, what is Mary's full name? And James can't answer this. And there's another flashback to Mary's grave, which tells you that one of her middle names is Angela, and then you meet Angela again for the third time. And I just need to say that Eddie and Angela and Laura are all real people. Maria isn't, and I'll reveal more of that after, but the way that characters are like thrown away in this movie, you would think that every single person was made up in James's head, and they're not. We meet Angela, who is on a mattress. She gets sucked into the mattress along with James, and this is where we meet another boss from the game. This is where we meet Abstract Daddy. And I will get on to what this thing is supposed to be when we get to the lore.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Just now, it's on screen for maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds max. Then we head to the roof, because why the fuck not at this point? James finds Mary's body on a bed. We then get a flashback of James going to visit Mary when she's dying. Like, he went grovelling back when she was on her last legs. There's no way around it. And she says to him, oh, I'm such a burden. I don't want to be here anymore. James, you know what to do. You can help me with this. So basically, she asks him to, I can't say exactly what because YouTube will spank me senseless if I do. So James, using both his hands, covers her nose and mouth, and that's how, James murdered his wife. But it is way more consensual and way less, intense than how it goes down in the game. And I will explain again in the, you know at this point.
We know.
Cue the final boss from the game, the giant moth version of Mary. James suddenly gains the ability to float when all the floor suddenly falls away. There's a shit ton of moths. And then James is kneeling in front of Mary's dead body because the body was on has now also fucking vanished. And he picks her up and puts her in the front seat of his car, and they drive into Silent Hill Lake. But this isn't the entire ending, because then, in a Whiplash Groundhog Day moment, the movie goes all the way back to the beginning when James and Mary first met. It was all potentially a dream, which I hate as a trope. Basically, you've completely invalidated everything that has just happened for the previous hour and 40 minutes, and then as they drive into Silent Hill, we get the iconic theme of Laura as the credits start to roll. So that's the plot.
Is it over?
So let's just say that this movie is 50% aimlessly wandering around and ignoring phone calls from your therapist, and 50% flashbacks, with 100% of the unnecessary changes not needing to be there in the first place, because if you'd kept them as the original, they would have still made sense to people who have never played the game before. And if you think I'm exaggerating when I say that this is 50% like flashbacks, I am not. If you took the runtime for this entire movie, which is 1 hour and 37 minutes minus the credit, I, hand on heart, think that 40 minutes of this movie is told in flashbacks. James cannot get from A to B without having 1-2 flashbacks in the middle, and then he's magically transported to the next location. Like, he is doing the flashback version of sleepwalking, because he's aimlessly wandering around with no idea where he's going, has a flashback, and then he's magically where he needs to be.
I have no memory of this place.
Let's talk about the horrible production value of this movie. And we're going to start with the CGI, because it is possibly, besides the wigs, the most offensive production thing in the entire movie. The CGI makes Silent Hill Revelations look like a masterpiece. It really does. It is that level of bad. The first monster that we meet, like I said, is the bow-legged monster. Its CGI is horrible. And what makes it worse is that when we first saw this monster back in the original Silent Hill, and no one is complaining about the original Silent Hill movie, no one is complaining about its monsters that were done practically. The actors that portrayed all of the monsters back in the original movie did such a phenomenal job in the full prosthetics that now seeing them done in such horrible, dodgy CGI is no. Why did we make this decision? Why didn't we decide to do practical effects again? If a monster is going to be on screen for all of 10 seconds, why not do it? Just do it practically. Just go with practical effects, not horrible, horrible CGI. The bubble head nurses, their faces don't even look like they should in this. Like I said, they look like cocoons with holes in them, which I could have understood if this was a reference to the moths, which again I will get to, but it's not. Pyramid Head has considerably shrunk because he has also been done in CGI, and I'm sorry to everybody who is here for Pyramid Head, or as some of you call him, Pyramid Daddy. They've covered his abs, so he's not buff anymore, and like I said, he's massively shrunk. And I'm not mad at a short king, but if I'm promised a monster that is built like a door, and this thing shows up, I'm not going to be impressed. Like, I want something that is, what he represents, he should be the most, like, intimidating, threatening thing that you come across in the entire movie. Is he? No. No, there's nothing threatening about Pyramid Head in this movie. He's not on screen long enough to be threatening. Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack was one of the things that they sold us on when they were like, oh yeah, we're going to use the original soundtrack. Besides the theme of Laura and a tiny snippet of another track whose name I can't remember, I swear you hardly hear this soundtrack whatsoever. Promise, or Promise Reprised, isn't even in the movie. Like, I don't remember hearing it at all. You know where you do hear Promise, though? In the trailer.
Hell no!
Right, let's talk the cult, because it was a choice. It was a choice to include such a poorly written and completely unfleshed out cult to the world of Silent Hill. When James walks in on them having a meeting in Mary's apartment, you would think they were having a Tupperware party. Like, that's how unimpressive it is. The order that you meet in the first movie, in the third movie, in the games, are very dominant in the world of Silent Hill. They have a physical presence, and they are something that you don't want to mess with. They even have the church that they all go and meet up in. Like, there's no denying that this cult has an existence in the world of Silent Hill. This one, you wouldn't even know was there. Like, the difference would be, like, the Order would be a mega church, and this one would be 3 people sat in a shed. Like, they're supposed to be worshipping Mary's dad, who, besides one figure, we never see anything of. And it's like a carved wooden figure, so it's kind of ambiguous as to whether it looks like him or not. Just, I don't understand the choice to add the cult, or a cult, any cult, to this movie, because if you're not going to flesh it out, what's the point in doing it?
I don't understand, bitch. I don't understand.
They don't even have a name. They're just referred to as some religious group. The styling is a choice. I want to know so badly who thought it was a good idea to make James Sunderland look like a 2005 pickup artist, because multiple necklaces, the brocade waistcoat under his jacket, like, he looks like he would be giving out business cards in a bathroom to, like, men who are having zero success chatting at women on a Wednesday night. Like, I can't, like, absolutely not. His personality is that of a 2x4. It is wooden and rigid. That wig looks like it is about to become its own sentient being, and if it did, I wouldn't be mad, because maybe it would like to adopt the personality of James, or even some of his backstory, which is never brought up at all in this movie. Like, the styling is, like, I can't think of a single wig in this movie that I'm not mad at. They're all horrible.
Wait, but is it fashion? It's fashion.
Then we get on to Mary, who in the games is James's wife. In this, they are a romantic relationship that are together for an undisclosed amount of time, and that's about it. Like, her dad's a cult leader. Like I said, we never meet him at all. We see Mary have a book club style meeting with her cult twice, and then she has an arcane ritual down in the sewers of Silent Hill where she wears a lovely tinfoil mask, because that's what it looks like. Who is this woman? Who is she? Who is she? Like, you find out that she's been poisoned by the cult over multiple years, so how slow is this poison? But yeah, in the games, you find out that Mary has a terminal illness, and she and James used to vacation in Silent Hill, which is why she wants to go back to Silent Hill because you find out that something happened in Silent Hill to it. Fuck it, I'll spoil it here now. You find out that James, in the games, actually smothered Mary to death. Mary was in hospital and Laura was in hospital at the same time. Mary is discharged in her final days because she has the I don't want to be here kind of depression. And James sees her as an absolute burden and decides to remove said burden with a pillow. And in the games, at the Lakeview Hotel, in room 300 and something, you find a VHS tape because you find out that James was filming his wife's last days, and you see him physically take that pillow and murder his own wife. So yeah, she'd be pretty pissed about that. In this, he turns up on her deathbed and is like, I will consensually do the thing that you have asked me to do. Why is he feeling guilty in this movie? He basically just did a dying woman's final wishes. He didn't murder her, did the same level that he did in the game. Like, different levels of guilt going on here.
Different, but same.
So let's talk about the moths, like I mentioned earlier, because moths do actually have quite a significant meaning in the Silent Hill 2 game. Mary and Maria are not technically the same person. Maria is a alternative manifestation, should we say, sent by Silent Hill to test James. And this is what James would have liked Mary to be like in real life. That's why she is like hypersexualized and very full on in how she comes across to James. And she even has a moth tattoo. Now, the idea is moths symbolize like life, death, rebirth. And Silent Hill also, this particularly the second one, has a big emphasis on alchemy. And moths play a big part in alchemy. It is why moths often appear in the puzzles in this game, in the bosses in this game. Maria has like a moth tattoo. In the movie, if you blink, you will absolutely miss it because it's like there and then it's gone. But yeah, moths are a big part of Mary in Silent Hill 2. Is this ever acknowledged in Silent Hill 2 why like Mary sends hordes of moths? No. And there's one part in this where they don't even look like moths. They look like fleshy locusts.
Good heavens.
Then there is Pyramid Head, or as some of you feral people online call him, Pyramid Daddy, which I get. He's got great abs and has clearly been working out on their moms. But he is the physical manifestation of James's guilt and anger and resentment and pent up all kinds of things, which is why he's such a dominant kind of entity whenever he shows up, especially in the games when he turns up multiple times. He is like, oh, you feel guilty about murdering your wife? Let me turn up and make things just that little bit worse for you. I've sharpened my sword, especially not in this. In the thing that he's supposed to be physically in, he's on screen in 3 scenes, and he's probably on screen for 30 seconds to a minute tops, and I'm kind of pushing it for a minute. He's hardly here. And they've covered his abs.
Gas.
This may get a little bit complicated, but stick with me and I will try and explain this the best I can. You have the other characters in this who are very, very neglected in this movie, and that is Eddie, Angela, and Laura, who are all actual people. Now, Eddie and Angela have been called to Silent Hill because they are fighting their own grief and demons, per se. They have both also murdered someone and are living through the psychological trauma and torment that this action has left them with. And this means that they too can see the other world. But the other world, when everything changes, is different for each of these 3 people. They do sort of bleed into each other, but they're monsters, unless they have like reasons to see them, do not show up in each other's other worlds. To Eddie, the other world is cold and it's dark, which is why in the game you often see Eddie has got cold breath. And to Angela, her world, because like James's is rooted in sexual nature, but hers is the trauma side of it, is why her world also has the fleshy walls, but her world is hot and fiery, and yep, she killed the dad, and that's why she carries that trauma. But this brings me on to the abstract daddy monster, who looks different to Angela and James because both of them can see this monster, but it will look different to each person, but we never find out what this looks like to Angela. To Angela, this monster is the representation of the trauma that she experienced at the hands of her dad, and to James, this is supposed to be the experience of seeing Mary being bedridden, which in this movie, how the fuck would he know? Because he turned up for a matter of minutes when she was on her last legs. So that's a bit of how the other world kind of works. But this says that Laura shouldn't be able to see the monsters. Laura doesn't see the other world because Laura doesn't have the trauma and the guilt to carry around with us. So having Laura be able to see the monsters in this movie is a choice. Like, what guilt and trauma is this child carrying around? Now, this would have been so easy to implement in the movie. You just have Laura not be able to see him, as always, not have Eddie see him, because the only person that should be able to see Pyramid Head is James. He is only a threat to James. Laura doesn't like James because she was in hospital with Mary and saw how James badly treated her. That's why she hates his guts.
You're tacky and I hate you.
Now, why am I bringing all of this up in particular? That is because none of these things needed to be changed from the original source material in order to make this work. I don't understand how man who killed wife receives letter from dead wife saying, please come to place you killed me, is so hard to implement. Like, this new story makes no sense to new people who are coming to the franchise, to existing fans of the franchise, or to those of us who have gone like elbows deep in its lore because that's how much we love this franchise. The original Silent Hill 2 is about people who are suffering and how the town of Silent Hill can use this suffering against them. It is people who have made huge decisions that have impacted their lives, and they are now living with the grief and torment every second of every day. It is a psychological horror survival game, and this movie has no understanding whatsoever of its source material. Now, there are going to be people out there who are going to say that I am biased towards the game and that my bias has tainted how I've watched the movie. And I want to try and explain this in like a really simplistic way so that people can understand like why fans of this franchise are so mad about this movie. When this movie was announced, we were told that it was going to be a movie based on Silent Hill 2. And this is a very, 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 very light adaptation of Silent Hill 2. Besides the title and the names of the characters, they kind of bear no resemblance to each other anymore at their core. It would be a bit like if you ordered a sandwich and someone gave you a jacket potato and was like, well, this is better because I've decided that you should like jacket potatoes better. It is not what we as a fan base were promised and were expecting. Like, this weren't it. If they wanted to change so much of the original source material, it would have been far better to go with the approach of the new Silent Hill F game, and that is create an entirely new original story within the world of Silent Hill, because as Silent Hill F has proven, Silent Hill can take place anywhere in any time period, because the other world can exist anywhere and everywhere. And if this director decided that Silent Hill is purely about cults, there are other entries in the Silent Hill franchise that would have fitted this agenda. For example, Silent Hill Homecoming. It's one of the less beloved entries in the franchise, but also happens to feature a cult. What we got was a director who also wrote this script, who claims to be a fan of the franchise, who decided that their ideas were far superior to those of the original and decided to make changes to fit his own ego. Like, this entire movie has been ruined because one man thought that he knew better than the people who made the original game. This director / writer genuinely thinks that people watch this movie because he is attached to it, which could not be further from the truth. Fans watch the Silent Hill movie because we love Silent Hill. It is not an attachment to this man. We are drawn to the lore, the monsters, the place. Just, it is so rich in lore and backstory that could never be explored in a simple under 2-hour movie. And the fact that he has already said, oh, fans think I'm doing such a great job with this franchise, I'm eyeing up another one. Absolutely not, sir. That is delusion talking. If you have never seen it, there is an incredible fan movie here on YouTube of Silent Hill for the Room. And it is proof that when fans of something love and appreciate the original source material, it will shine through. I will leave a link to it if you have never seen it, but like, this is what a Silent Hill movie should be like. Let fans who love the original actually embrace the original and do a good job with it. This is where I would normally say, well, a movie was or wasn't for me, but if you like this list of things, then you might like it. But for, I think this is only the second or third time in the nearly 3 years that I have had my channel, I can't sit down and do that because I can't tell you who this movie is supposed to be for besides the director. If I had zero knowledge of Silent Hill 2, could I enjoy this movie? No, because none of it is fully explained. There is things in this movie that leave far too many questions that could not be answered without playing the game. Casual fans and hardcore fans are not going to be happy with this plot because it is not what we've been promised. And anybody who is a fan of Pyramid Head is going to be disappointed because they've covered up his CGI abs. So to those who are drawn in for the thirst trap of Pyramid Head, I'm sorry, but you aren't going to get your fix from this movie either. At the end of the day, it is a poorly fleshed out plot that does not add any kind of character or dimension to any of its characters. It has horrendous CGI that I cannot forgive it for. Some very questionable choices of styling, particularly those wigs. And at the very end, an ending which makes the rest of the movie completely redundant. So when I'm giving a rating for this movie, I can't give it anything but a half star because I don't think that this movie should have been made in its current state. And I know that it only had a budget of 23 million, I think. But if I told you for that budget, just off last year's movie releases, you could make The Monkey and bring her back and still have change, it's not a tiny budget to actually work within the confinements of. And if anybody wants to know, how are you supposed to know so much about the lore of Silent Hill 2? A simple Google search will help you out. Silent Hill actually has its own wiki. That's how in-depth this all goes. And I hope that if you haven't played Silent Hill 2, this movie will not put you off from picking it up, because it really is, like I said at the beginning, the proverbial gem in the Silent Hill franchise. There is a reason why it is the biggest fan favourite out of every single game. So there you have it, my whatever kind of video this was. It was a full breakdown of the plot. It was some of the lore and backstory explained that I hope answers some questions that this movie did not answer, and a review of just really why it has been absolutely torn to pieces by fans of this franchise and just general cinema viewers in general. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I know that this has been an incredibly long video, so thank you if you did stick with me all the way to the end. Please hit the like button. The January drop is horrendous at the moment, and it would massively help me out as a creator. If you would like to know where else you can find me, I'm also over on Instagram and Letterboxd at Hordes of Horror and Head of the Horde. And I will see you again on Monday here on YouTube, where I'm going to be doing my monthly wrap up. But next week, on Friday, if all has gone well, I should be back with a review of Iron Lung, which I'm hoping adds a bit more joy back into my channel, because Iron Lung is a video game movie that has been made by people who love video games for people who love video games. So until next time, bye. A special thank you though to my regenerators here within the Horde for their support over on Patreon.